Thank you, listeners, for joining us. Today's Elko Live program is in place of the city's usual update in advance of council. We're in between council meetings, so we get to get an update from the Elko Police Department today, and we so appreciate this opportunity. Sitting across from our police chief, Kyle Ward, and the chief has brought with him today Cassie, Detective Cassie Barainca, and they are both here to tell us about a very special opportunity and some outreach in the community that's happening just this week. Chief Ward, welcome back to the radio show. And just so listeners know, you like to be called Kyle, so we will be calling you Kyle from here on out. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Lori.
Yes, I just said Chief again. Detective, would you like to be called Cassie, or would you like to be called Detective?
Cassie's fine.
I thought so,
Thank
too.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cassie has been with the Elko Police Department for how many years now?
9 years.
9 years. And before that, you served in the military.
I did.
Would you mind telling us about that extraordinary experience? We were all cheering you on.
Sure. I spent 8 years in the Army, and I flew Apache helicopters. I did two tours overseas. I was stationed in Georgia, Alabama, and Texas.
Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for bringing your experience and your courage and all of that passion back to near your hometown, I guess, growing up in Spring Creek.
Yeah, this is home.
All right. So we appreciate you very much being part of our Elko Police Department. So you're going to see in this program that her care and that kind of dedication and bravery is now transformed into caring for our families in our community. And I know, Kyle, that's an important mission of yours in leading the police department.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Lori. And that's something there, just speaking with Cassie as well, being here now a month and a half, just looking at what we're trying to do as a department, as a community, just different options for our community to make it safer and also just to engage with the public. I think that's important. And just speaking with Cassie, she's outstanding leader here on our department. She does a lot for our community and our outside agencies as well, for the sheriff's office, you name it. All of our partnering agencies, state police, they really appreciate the work she does and her team does. And that's something here I'm proud to be a part of.
And we're going to talk to Cassie about, obviously, the important relationships and collaborations that we have in our community. But the main goal is to keep families safe, right? And to inform families. Sometimes, Kyle, families don't even realize that they may be in danger, such as in the case of domestic violence, right?
Yes, and that's the percentages have been increasing over the years. It fluctuates, but domestic violence is definitely difficult. Especially during COVID times, I saw the increases between multiple jurisdictions where you did see those things where people are at home. There's stressors there from financial things and other elements there, different elements that really led to an increase in domestic violence related incidents. So we're really trying to educate the public on what you can do to minimize stress, because a lot of those responses dealt with stress. Even though there were other elements there, the main thing was figuring out how you manage that stress and knowing you have other options and other resources so it doesn't lead to any violent encounters.
And for listeners' benefit too, our police chief is very interested in responding to direct needs in the community. So you've been able to analyze some of these issues and realize that this is ongoing for the Elko area.
Yes, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to reach out to different businesses and just our community members. And Cassie's been helping out, giving me feedback on what's needed, because every community is different, and figuring out what specific needs are necessary for just people in different communities, whether it's in Elko City, if it's in Spring Creek, any other outlying areas. What can we do to ensure that we're providing the best service? And I think it starts with that communication, being able to speak to one another and figure out mutual needs so we can be more effective.
Our city police chief is Kyle Ward, and now we'll talk with Detective Cassie Barainca. And Cassie, tell us about this, the significance to you of getting this information out in this class that you're going to be teaching. Is this also in response to what you've seen in the community?
Sure. So I've actually been stationed over at the Great Basin Children's Advocacy Center now for about 2 years. And so I predominantly have worked, unfortunately, the really tough cases of child sex abuse cases, child abuse cases, that kind of stuff. And what I've kind of seen is a recurring pattern through my work working not only with the CAC, but then also prior to, just in my time in detectives, is as parents, I'm a parent to 3 little boys myself. We don't know what we don't know. And so when there's things or people out there that are out to harm our children, we think that we can do our best by doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing as parents, right? But sometimes we just don't know what's out there. I think when I was growing up, the big thing was like the stranger in the white panel van, like avoid like the stranger danger kind of thing. And anymore, that's just not the case. Stranger danger is essentially people coming in online to our kids and engaging in that way. And I think parents sometimes just don't know what's really out there. And so my partners at the CAC, 2 of the other detectives there who are phenomenal, and they're amazing at what they do. We have one with the Sheriff's Office, Detective Kelsey David, and then we also have Detective Jake Belinsky with the PD as well. We collaborated on this class to create a class that can kind of give parents an idea of what to watch out for both in person and online with their kids. And we geared it towards anybody that's a parent of anywhere from toddlers to teenagers. There's something in this class for everyone. And we talk about what to look out for as far as in-person safety with your kids, things to notice, and then also online, because at the end of the day, kids are getting online a lot sooner. And that's not necessarily something that we can avoid. So we want to teach parents what to look out for and also help them teach their kids what to look out for. Ideally, in the future, I would like to have a class where I talk with kids, so they could kind of understand. But I think really educating parents on what's out there and what to look for is a good step in the right direction. So this class is just kind of an overview of those things of what they can look out for and be wary of, and then if something does happen, on how to go about that process of disclosure.
We're talking with a detective from the Elko Police Department, and this class is set for this Thursday, August 21st, 5:30 p.m., and it is going to be at the police station. Is that right, Cassie?
Yes, it'll be approximately an hour, depending on. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. So just kind of however long. The presentation itself is about 45 minutes. Obviously very interactive. We want people to participate and ask questions. And there will be me and Detective David from the Sheriff's Office. She'll be there representing the county as well. So we're going to go through our presentation, and then if parents have questions, we can do a Q&A at the end. And we'll also have some resources there from our local community, such as we've reached out to the PACE Coalition. The CAC will be there, have a representative there, the Nevada Institute of Forensic Nursing. So just kind of some of the resources we have in the Elko area that really care about kids and this type of information as well, and want to help parents.
So, of course, this might be the type of class, Cassie, where a parent could come, listen, learn some new things, but then, as you said, ask some questions. Because from a lot of parents that I've talked to, not everybody understands the technology, right? So they don't know how these inappropriate relationships are being pushed out through, say, video games or even apps.
Correct. Yeah. A lot of times unfortunately, when I get cases, it's usually because something has happened. And so when I get a chance to talk to parents, I talk about monitoring, their digital activity. Apps like Snapchat is something that we're going to talk about. There's apps. Instagram is a big one with some of the things that go on in the cases that we get. Games such as Roblox, which is a huge game that a lot of children play. I could do a whole presentation just on Roblox alone. So there's several games and applications that I want to just educate parents on. I obviously don't think that just by going to one class, a parent is going to tell their kids, like, you can't be on this or you can't have this. I don't think that's realistic. But what I do think is that we can teach parents how to better monitor it. They can teach their kids how to better be safer, and what to look out for. So that's the goal. It's not to, basically take those things away from kids, because, I think we all know in this room that if they want it, they'll get it somehow. We just want to teach them how to be safe on it. And I think that starts with parents.
and having those important conversations, and then again protecting. As you said, these are from toddlers to teenagers. We start to hit that age, middle school, and they start to feel really independent, right? So that's when people can really start misusing those devices to reach out. I mean, without disclosing, you don't have to disclose anybody personal, local necessarily, but can you give us an example of how maybe something turns into a criminal activity? I mean, we hear the stories about runaways, right, who meet up with people and we search for them. I'm not talking about people locally, but I mean, Cassie, is that an example of someone who might have been targeted through a social media or app?
Sure. We do have local examples that I can think of from when I was a kid. And then also, I think that the thing that I try to get through parents is that, because a lot of parents would love to think that their kids would never do those types of things, right? But at the end of the day, our prefrontal cortex in our brain is not developed until we're in our 20s. And that's the area of the brain that is responsible for decision making, right? Like making sound decisions. And so sometimes, especially with teenagers, obviously they're not thinking logically, they're thinking hormonally. And they're craving feedback from a digital world, right? That's not something that we had to deal with when we were growing up. It's a different game now. And so that tends to lead them into making decisions like, sending photos that they maybe shouldn't send, or meeting people online that they necessarily, if they logically thought about it, would think, well, this is probably not a good idea, right? So digitally, that's kind of where we get into trouble digitally. And this class can kind of help point those things out and educate parents. And then locally too, I can remember as a kid, we had a local guy here that was a basketball coach. He was very involved in certain things, and he ended up turning up to be, getting in trouble for some activity that he shouldn't have been involved in. And that's one of those things that in person, teaching to recognize the signs there, I think that's important too. So that's what this class is about.
Yeah, no, we were going to shift gears to that. So what you were talking about is something that we have had, because we have had local law enforcement talk about. There was this rise in sexting, and it was an incredible burden for the victim.
Yes.
And that's what made it so hard.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. It's sexting, not necessarily sexting, but like the sextortion aspect of it, of like extorting people for photos, and how easily and slippery of a slope that can be. You ending up doing it without realizing that you're getting yourself into it, right? Like if you were to label it that, nobody's going to willingly walk into that, right? So obviously predators are quick, and they understand how to prey upon kids. And so they're going to try to manipulate them in a manner that can get them to provide photos or whatever it is. And then the way that I look at it, is that's essentially like a digital sexual assault, right? Like it's so traumatizing to the victims, and that once it's out there, it's out there. And so then it's re-victimizing these kids. So it's just really important that we understand kind of what that does, and have parents, involved in this process. And then also this class talks to parents about how to respond if their teenager does say, hey, look, I've been involved in this, because our natural response is going, oh my gosh, what were you thinking? But again, I go back to, they weren't thinking, and we need to be compassionate in our response to them and understand what we need to do to move forward to help them through that victimization.
And you also touched on something really important, Cassie, and that is believing the victims.
Yes.
Because often this is a child coming forward with some information, and it could be about a trusted person in the family, or as you mentioned, a coach, unfortunately, or even a family member.
Correct.
Cassie.
Yeah, and I would offer this statistic. I know sometimes statistics can make people's eyes gloss over, but I will say a recent study had found that I think it's only like 2 to 6% of juveniles will actually make a false accusation. So when I tell you believe your kid, believe your kid. And predators are very savvy of gaining trust with people, and they will try to do so in a manner in which it turns a parent against their kid. So my best advice for parents is always believe your child. Once we do that and we report, then, let the police or the investigators do their job to hash out the details of it. But the best thing that you can do that is going to help your child on that healing journey from the start is to believe them.
And that's the other important aspect of this, is why it is important to report. I think in previous generations, when bad things happened, there was that tendency to just, push it under the rug.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things, if people aren't familiar with the Child Advocacy Center, or the CAC as I call it, we have those resources located in one building. And so the biggest thing is when it is reported, that victim is automatically guaranteed services for mental health and continued counseling, medical services. There's a lot of things that we can provide, but we've got to get you in the door first. And disclosing it and reporting it is that first step.
And as you mentioned, too, with a very small percentage of children, or we'll just say victims, because again, not everybody thinks of teenagers as children, but they are still undeveloped, as you were talking about. Even if there is a report that's made that does not turn out to be entirely accurate, there is usually a reason for that, right, Cassie? And that child needs help.
Yeah, when we see kiddos that, have habitual behavior with certain things, whether it's, not telling the truth or acting out, or there's a number of things, there's usually a root cause to that issue, right? So, maybe even if it's a half truth or a partial truth, we can kind of get to the root cause of that and figure out where we can get this kid or this victim help where they need it.
Something else that we understand that also comes up, especially in children and families that are engaged in the process of the Child Advocacy Center, and this is a difficult topic because people feel strongly about it, but pornography. We understand that when children are exposed to pornography, or that parents don't understand the responsibilities they have to protect children from pornography.
Yeah, so another statistic that stood out to me, my oldest is 6 years old. Okay, so he just went to kindergarten, his first day of kindergarten yesterday. I might need the Kleenexes now, but just kidding. The statistic that stood out to me, though, is that the first exposure for kids to pornography is between the ages of 7 and 11 years old. So I think about my oldest child in a year could potentially statistically be exposed to pornography. And that just blows my mind, right? That's something that they are not even anywhere developmentally capable of understanding what they're seeing, and how the harmful effects that has on their development. And so, it's up to adults to make sure that they're engaged in what their children are seeing and consuming, even if it's just, if you're really good about your digital devices, but you might be watching a TV program that's inappropriate and it's just kind of on in the background. Everybody knows that kids are sponges and they pick things up and they are always observing things. And so, that's on us as adults and parents to make sure that we are policing that and understanding that what is not developmentally appropriate for a child should not be anywhere near that child at any time.
Detective Cassie Barainca is our guest today, alongside our police chief, Kyle Ward, as we're talking about this very important class that's coming up Thursday, August 21st, 5:30 p.m. at the Elko City Police Station there on Silver Street. It's entitled Protecting Children from Predators, both in person and online. Just about an hour-long session. Chief, I want to make sure that you get to chime in as well, and that the police department is eager to help provide this class and information like it to, say, businesses or any other organizations.
Absolutely. So I had mentioned before that we're looking at a business connection, so we want to link our community and our police department with those resources and education. So we will be having different blocks and different sessions, like Cassie mentioned before, so we can educate the public on those trends, especially with online predators. Some years back, this was probably about 10 or 12 years back, we were on a victims of crime subcommittee for the state, and it looked at child predator-based things, human trafficking, which is still increasing. Yeah. So we're looking at ways to mitigate those things, those signs, to especially to reduce bullying and suicidal ideations, all those things that come along with our kids. So we want to have those options. And we're going to keep pushing that and making sure we're educating the public, looking at those resources for family as a whole, plus our kids there. With schools starting back up, it's important because they do absorb that information. They do take those things in. And with social media, it doesn't go away. And that's something there that sticks with the kids. So we want to make sure we're educating even the people that are creating these problems here. We need to educate them and find a way to come up with a solution so they're not doing it any further.
Yeah.
And we know that there are agencies and organizations that are helping and collaborating on this issue. I know that communities and schools, they're there to help students, especially older students who may be struggling, rather than dropping out or running away, because some of these enticements that come to them online are simply a way to get them involved in human trafficking. And if they're having a miserable life, some of these situations may look good to some of these children.
Yeah, that's what predators do, right? They want to make whatever they're offering seem better than where you're at now, right? Or and so that's how they lure these kids. A lot of them are really savvy, like offer gifts. Hey, if you send me a picture of this, I'll get you those new pair of shoes. Just send me your address. I'll send them to you. And we see a lot of that kind of stuff with online stuff. And Chief mentioned, suicide rates. Sextortion, victims of sextortion have a disproportionately high suicide rate, unfortunately. And so I think it's kind of what we talked about previously, that those never go away and they continue to be re-victimized. And so we really want to make sure that we're looking into that and taking steps to educate parents. And then also, anybody that engages in that kind of behavior is dealt with accordingly.
I hope that listeners come away from this program with the understanding that the Child Advocacy Center is saving lives. They're saving a generation.
Yes.
Because this type of predatory behavior existed before there was technology and the availability of digital media, but is certainly enhanced now with this. And so we want to really emphasize, too, that there is recovery, there is healing, and we are trying to normalize this experience. That's why we have a Child Advocacy Center, right, Cassie?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it's like 1 in 4 teens will be approached online for nefarious activity. And when you think about it, that is so many people when we're online constantly, day in and day out, right? And so, yeah, we want to make sure that we're not necessarily normalizing it, but we're normalizing the response in how we take care of these kids, right? We're not ostracizing them. We're not denying them any kind of help or anything like that. That we're looking at it from a whole universal approach with medical, mental health, law enforcement, continuing resources as they get older. There's a whole slew of organizations out there that are built, unfortunately, for this type of behavior and helping victims through it. And so we want to make sure that we're educating people on how to get through it and normalize the recovery and the response to it.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you made that clear, because that is important. What's so important for victims to know, whether it's a toddler or a teenager, you are not alone.
Correct.
This has happened to people and they did not deserve it.
Yes.
And you have been victimized. And so it is a process, but the first process is to report it.
Yes.
So I figured maybe as a way to kind of wrap up this session, again, just reminding people of the live class, what is the best way to respond or to report?
Sure. If you have like an incident that's past tense and there's no exigency or emergent, circumstances surrounding it, you can call in dispatch, and either a deputy or an officer will respond and they'll take a report. And when they take that initial report, they'll kick it up through the chain, both agencies, and then it will get assigned to a detective, and then they'll work that process from there. So there's a little bit of time. I would ask people to be patient. It's not a huge amount of time, but there is a little bit of time to take that initial report and then work it through the channels to get it to the detective division and then get it assigned out, and then for a detective to reach out to them. From there, depending on the circumstances, the victim might be interviewed. The way that the detective chooses to work the investigation from there is obviously kind of individual. But that's kind of more for a past tense reporting. If you have a report that's an emergent situation, we have a whole team that's on call 24/7. So we have an on-call detective that might come out. We have NVIFN who's always on call to do medical exams. Our forensic interviewers, our people over at the CAC, we always have an interviewer that can be on standby to do a forensic interview, which is kind of just a fancy term of interviewing children. in a specific way that we do that. And so if it is an emergency situation, we have a whole team of people that can come out and respond and do the necessary footwork to make sure that that investigation goes where it needs to go. So whether it's past tense or whether it's an emergent situation, call dispatch and we'll kind of get it figured out from there.
Cassie, thank you again. And it's important to note the Nevada Institute of Forensic Nursing, it is a nonprofit. These are very passionate, dedicated people, and I think it's really important to note that they are mobile, right, Cassie?
Yes.
They can come to the victim.
Yeah, they have a mobile unit, and then they also they work out of our CAC quite frequently. So they have not only nurses and examiners, but they have forensic interviewers, and importantly, they have victim advocates as well. So the NVIFN and the CAC work really closely together.
All right. And then again, as we mentioned, there are other community partners. And another aspect would be Committee Against Domestic Violence, and that they have a 24-hour Harbor House shelter.
Yes.
And that also the goal is to create a whole family, but then also to bring in and to triage any number of issues, because the point of all of these agencies and organizations is to help lift up the victims, but also to break the cycle, right, Cassie?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And we want to make sure that if we have somebody that's victimized in the family, they're supported, and that it doesn't happen to anybody else in the family, right? So we all work very well together within our agencies, and we know that we all have the same goal, right, to make the victim whole and make sure that they have continued support.
We are so fortunate to have you on our team at the Elko Police Department and as part of this process. And Cassie, did we get to everything that you were hoping to? Again, just to remind people, this class, Thursday, August 21st, 5:30 p.m., Protecting Children from Predators, both in person and online, from toddlers to teens. Parents, you can ask questions. This will be a session at the Elko Police Department, and it will be in a very supportive setting. You don't have to engage in the conversation. There'll be resources there. You can speak to them privately after, or you can certainly reach out to Detective Barainca offline if you prefer to do that as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything that we failed to mention? You come back anytime. I hope you will.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, I just appreciate you having us on, that we could get this out to the public. This is something that me and my partners, and I know Chief is very passionate about. And so we're just really grateful for the opportunity to give a voice to it, and hopefully we have a lot of attendance at this class. And if we do, hopefully we can have it again for those that missed it. We might try to do it at a different time. I know sometimes 5:30 isn't the best time, so we'd be open to feedback too, whether it be a luncheon or anything that the community sees would fit better for them.
Thank you so much, Cassie.
Thank you
Really
for having
appreciate it. Yes. And Chief, Kyle, we'll kind of give closing remarks to you. Again, this is such an important topic. I know that you do have a person on staff, and I think it's important to maybe mention that person as well, because the work that she does to help victims so that they can be confident and prepared and feel supported if it is time to go to court, right? That's an important position.
Yes, and with Cassie and the entire team, so Amber Huff, she does a great work there, and really looking at those things, because predators can be family members, they can be acquaintances, it can be strangers, whether it's online, in person, those things are important. And I think the communication between family members to understand those signs and those indicators there will help for at least finding out if something's happening or preventing something from going any further. So we're looking at those things, what those key risks are, and how we can mitigate those risks by early intervention and making sure that we're getting that message out, that it will not be tolerated. And we want to be a resource for wellness. We're looking at other avenues as well that we'll be bringing up in the upcoming months, just on how we're going to improve that from community feedback. So we want that feedback. Please attend if you can. But we're going to continue doing these things, these type of events, so we can educate the public, and we're learning from them as well. So just be careful here, and with school in session now, please be careful and look out for those signs. Speak with your kids. Make sure you have a good relationship with them where they trust you and is mutual, so they will come to you if there's something there that's not right.
Yep.
Thank you both so much for being on our program today. From the Elko Police Department, our police chief, Kyle Ward, our police detective, Cassie Barainca, and they are both dedicated to the mission of protecting and healing families and lifting up our community. Thanks again for being here today, and thank you listeners for joining us for today's program.